What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the LivBtr podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ciano, founder of Sabre Advisors. On today's episode, I have a dear friend, Francesca Sipma, the founder of Mastry. She is also a breathwork expert and specializes in Hypno Breathwork. Francesca's new book, Unblock Your Purpose, is out now, and I highly encourage you guys grab that if you want to break through to new heights in all areas of your life. Guys, special episode with Francesca. I hope you enjoy.
I just want to have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my card, never see the receipt. Good health, we prize, but everybody around prosperity.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the LivBtr podcast. This is your host, Jay Ciano, and this is the show for people trying to optimize every area of their life. Let's go.
I just want to have peace.
Francesca Sipma, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for going out of your way to join me. I love seeing you.
It was intuitive to ask you to be on the show, actually.
That makes me feel even more special. Even more special. I want to dive into a lot of things, and we're going to get to the book, which I'm super excited to not only talk about, but to read. So thank you for bringing me a gift.
Of course.
And for the listeners, let's start, give a little background on yourself and how you got to breathwork.
Yeah, so I'm actually back in the old stomping grounds right now in New York. So I spent 10 years here having a pretty successful career in advertising and marketing and sort of reached all of my goals and the things that I thought I wanted and was working client side at Bacardi and flying international around the world, business class, private jets, doing all the things that I thought I wanted, and just woke up one day and realized that I wasn't happy. I just didn't feel fulfilled. Something was missing. And that sort of took me on a quest to discover what would actually light me up. And I went on a bit of a healing journey and discovered breathwork, and it completely changed my life.
How many years ago was that?
It was about 4 or 5 years ago.
The world needs more healing journeys and grace and, ways to regulate your stress.
Yeah.
We were talking about all the tabs that I have open, and you were one of the first breathwork experiences that I've ever had, and I've had a few since, but not enough. And I feel like a lot of people have not really been exposed to breathwork. I think it's still new for most people, even if you're like super into wellness. Meditation and breathwork are two things that you really have to focus on.
Yeah.
What are for somebody who really hasn't been able to make it a part of their routine, just give, like myself, just give some maybe tips on how to do that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different styles of breathwork now. It's kind of become like a yoga where there's different forms and techniques. So the one that I specialize in or really created was Hypno Breathwork because it's 22 minutes and it blends breathwork, which is more of an experiential therapy. So what that means is we're really clearing suppressed emotions out. We're clearing energetic patterns that are lodged in your nervous system and in your subconscious. And then we use hypnosis, which is really just subtle vocal cues that allow you to concentrate and focus your mind on negative thoughts, limiting beliefs that need to be reprogrammed and rewired. And then we're really heavy on visualization or visioning so that you can see the outcome that you want to create. You can see the future goal like it's done. You can feel it in your body. And then you're really training and mentally rehearsing yourself to get to that place and to attract the energy or the opportunities that will make that happen. So it's a hyper efficient, in my opinion, most effective modality in personal development to really help you clear blocks and optimize performance.
Yeah. And I think that's why everyone should do it, right? Because I think visualization and manifestation are a lot of like people that are the best at their craft. Go through, they're a game, right, in their head prior. And I think I had a conversation right before this where we were talking about goals and I think it's important to really think about where you want to be 5 years from now. And without visualizing what your life should look like or what you would want your life to look like, it's impossible to really achieve those things. So would you agree that breath work kind of forces you to really think through that process and creates that opportunity and clears the block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part that I think is the most profound, because it allows us to access what's disconnected, what's incongruent from our conscious goals and our subconscious motivations. So you might think that you really want to be a successful entrepreneur, but in your subconscious, you might not have that self-belief.
Right.
Or you might have a pattern of procrastination or a fear of failure. So those are the things that we need to identify first and really feel into what the source of them are. And in breathwork, you'll get to the memories.
Yeah.
You'll get to where the behavior pattern was developed. And then through the hypnotic suggestion, you get to expand your mind. You get to see into a new vision of the future, because we're so stuck in our own anxiety and our own day-to-day grind and our habitual thought loops. And the breath work physiologically is changing the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So this allows you to go way deeper into the subconscious and start to change those beliefs that have been holding you back from your full potential, and see that new vision that's exciting and expansive and is up-leveled. And then the piece that I think is most exciting for you is it allows you to also tap into your intuition and prioritize what's the most important. So it's literally organizing your thought streams, which I feel like could be really beneficial for you when you have multiple projects going on in parallel, to just be able to have a lot of clarity and a lot of organization and just sharper cognition in your brain.
So Mastry is your company, and how would I utilize Mastry to be able to do that? I obviously have the unique benefit of access to you, but let's just say when you get on your plane later to Miami and you're no longer with me, how could I dive into that?
Yeah, so Mastry is a wellness platform that leverages Hypno Breathwork. So we do virtual sessions or live in-person sessions for corporate teams, for sports teams, and for schools, but we also have an app.
Right.
Because it's exactly the tool that I needed to continue in my transition from corporate to becoming an entrepreneur and staying really elevated in my belief and my conviction and my tenacity and all the things. I had to keep connecting to the vision. So I wanted to create a tool that was really accessible, that had these Hypno Breathwork sessions, 8 minutes, 22 minutes, across every topic that you could need. So if I was feeling paralyzed through perfectionism, I would do a topic specifically curated for that. Or if I just needed to get into flow state or peak performance or decision making, there's all these different styles and topics on the app. And there's also topics for your personal life. So we have a whole category for love and for health, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is if you're leaking energy in one area of your life, you're actually leaking energy in all areas of your life. And we think as entrepreneurs, we're master compartmentalizers and we can just focus on the project and it doesn't matter what's going on at home or it doesn't matter what's going on in our health or in our body. But that's just not the way the subconscious mind works.
Yeah.
It doesn't distinguish between your personal and your professional worlds.
Yeah.
So on Mastry, we wanted to create topics for whatever's triggering you that day. Whatever you're being reactive to, how can you breathe it out, reprogram it, see it differently? And then most importantly, take action from that state. Not taking action from a place of fear or doubt or insecurity or ego.
Right.
But instead, you've breathed out the block, you've reprogrammed, you've seen the goal, you've felt into it, and now you're acting from that place, which means your energy is different. You're shifted, your nervous system is regulated, your mind is calm, you have a quiet confidence about you when you go and send the email or do the pitch or, present the deck or whatever that is. Yeah. You're doing it from a completely new energy and in an aligned way. I
feel like for me, and utilizing like ice baths and sauna for me have been very therapeutic. Mm-hmm. And I do breath work in the sauna, but again, I need to be more consistent about it. And I feel like for people that are not very familiar with it, it's a little intimidating in a group setting too. Like I was just at a retreat I just mentioned, and we did a breath work session, and it's tough to get out of your head when you're laying down next to 30, 40 people and being loud and doing all the things. It's a little, it's not intimidating. It's just like,
uncomfortable.
Yeah, or like, you know, you feel embarrassed to make the noises, you know, and you have to get past that to actually access.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I want you to come to one of my group experiences.
I know, I need to.
You should definitely come to one of my group experiences because there's really a craft. Like there's a way for you to set up the environment. Yeah. If a coach is holding the space, to set it up to feel really safe, for everyone to be vulnerable, to ask the right questions, and to really set the mood so that everyone feels comfortable going deep. Yeah. And then when you curate the right playlist, it helps people get out of their head. They're syncing their breath to the rhythm and to the music, and they're kind of getting lost in it. It starts to feel good. It starts to get really active in their body. You start to vibrate. Your hands are tingling. Your face is tingling. Your body is releasing all this stress. And if you're with the right coach, they'll cue you to have the breakthrough and the revelation somewhere in the middle of your session. Yeah. And then towards the end, it gets super euphoric because you're visualizing that new future self. You're visualizing the goal like it's already done. 2025 roadmap, revenue, success, all the things you're on this stage. Yeah. You know, so people start to get really blissed out. But the arc of a really good hypno breathwork journey does require you to face some deep emotions. Yeah. Like it can be really, really heavy in the beginning and in the middle because you're releasing the stress and the anxiety that's been blocked and lodged in your body. Yeah. And that's really uncomfortable for people, you know, like we have so many coping mechanisms to avoid feeling our feelings. But the reality is you have to feel through it in order to get to that next level of clarity and lightness. Yeah. And I think that that's just, you know, being clear and facing things head on, which is not easy. Yeah. You know, I removed alcohol 2 years ago now. Amazing. And like that was the biggest, you know, I numbed myself for so many years because I didn't want to deal with the thoughts and the memories and the loss and the trauma and all the things. And the minute that I like sat with all of those things and actually faced them head on, like I really broke through the ceiling in every area of my life, which, you know, and I feel like I'm now like plateaued again on some level and I'm craving a breakthrough. And organization. So I'm going to take you up on that. And I want to actually, we should create something in New York. Like we should. Yeah, I would love that. Let's absolutely do that. Yeah, let's do it. You know, I think a lot of people, we kind of wear it as a badge of honor to not feel our feelings and to keep everything really suppressed and be I think really people tough. Are finally, you know, like that whole like hustle culture, because I was part of it. You know, you feel you're spot on, where you just feel like if you're busy and stressed out, you're bragging about it, right? As opposed to, and I think it's so unhealthy. Yeah. You know, sleep is everything to me now. And you know, being in like circadian rhythm is so important, like all the things. And I'm telling you, I think breath work is the one thing. I know. And I know you know that. And you've been telling me that for a very long time. Well, because you post your checklist every day. And I'm like, where is breath work on this? That's the most efficient one that's going to knock off 3 of these things in one practice. Yeah. I think what's missing from your practice is the intentionality of the breathwork session. And that's what I would want you to focus on. So in sessions, you can actually just focus your brain on one project, on one client, on one opportunity. And then you start to get all these ideas and solutions around it. You can hack flow state on demand. That's one of the most exciting, you know, discoveries that I had on this journey was when I started doing the breathwork consistently, I found myself so clear. My articulation, my decision-making, my problem solving, everything was functioning at a higher level. And I got really excited by that productivity that felt aligned. And when I decided to, you know, give up the titles and the significant career and go into being a breathwork coach, A, my ego had to die, but B, I had to figure out a business plan and how I was going to make back a really, you know, comfortable lifestyle and salary. And one day I just treated my bedroom like a war room, the same way I did in my advertising and marketing days. And I had psychological benefits, physiological benefits, spiritual benefits, partnership ideas, media opportunities, like all of these ideas on a wall. Like my bedroom was just filled with white papers and ideas. And then I would go and breathe and I would notice that different ideas would connect. It'd be like, reach out to this person, pitch this topic with this idea, scale it with this social media, with this video, and then wear this and da-da-da. And I was like, whoa, am I getting into flow state through my breath? And then I started doing it on other executives and CEOs and teams. And I saw that we can get into this collective flow state where we're seeing the campaign, we're seeing the presentation, we're seeing the book, and we're getting all these new creative solutions, and the dots are connecting because you have all of this information and knowledge in your subconscious mind that goes untapped. So every investor conversation, every mentorship conversation, every podcast, article, book, all the things are stored in your subconscious. And when you breathe, you see how to scale it. You see the acquisition strategy. You see the partnership opportunity, and things just connect and click. So that's how I would want you to use it, to organize, because you just have so many different things going on, firing on all cylinders at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you think about them in breath and you focus your brain on what you need the next step on, or what decision you need to make, it'll give you absolute clarity in 20 minutes.
Hacking flow state on demand is like the most, that's like a straight up superpower. Like if you're able to do that, how many minutes like do you need to breathe for that, to access that?
The ideal time is 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and I'll explain why. So it actually takes about 4 minutes to get your brainwaves into a deep theta state. That means you're transitioning from the overthinking analytical mind to slowing it down, where your brain becomes more suggestible. You're more open to thoughts and suggestions and vocal cues. Then we want to clear out any blocks, any stress, any anxiety. So that's like another 4-minute song. And then we basically have you focus on the project or the intention. And then we have you see the outcome or the goal. And then there's a little integration. So 20 minutes is like a perfect journey for you to get that kind of clarity. And I hear it from people all the time. They're like, oh, I just don't have time to breathe in the morning. I'm like, it takes me like 1/10 of the time to write emails, make websites, create projects, do decks because of that 20 minutes in the morning. My brain is so much more clear for the rest of the day. So it's really an investment that's worth your time.
And does it have to be in the morning? Is it the best time to do that because it sets you up the rest of the day essentially for success?
Yeah, it really does, because, you know, we have decades of conditioning.
Of course.
We are just operating in programmed unconscious thoughts and patterns, and we are just on autopilot the majority of the time. So I always say, first thing when you wake up, breathe so that you're in that higher state. You're the most elevated version of yourself. You're clear on your to-do list for the day. You know intuitively what you need to prioritize. And then you're operating from that place for the whole day. You know, it just makes sense.
Definitely. I mean, I think that there are things that if I don't do them in the morning, I'm definitely off.
Yeah.
You know, throughout the rest of the day, which means, unfortunately, waking up earlier typically, like that's the only way I can get those things in. But I've realized that, you know, I'm at I have an advantage if I'm doing those things and the rest of the day, you know, plays out. You just, you know, you're a little bit more clear. You're a little bit more energized and able to execute it at a higher level.
Absolutely.
Which is everything. And that compounds over time.
You're talking about 2 chapters in my book right now, because I have a hacking flow state on demand and I have a compound intuitive action chapter. But think about it in terms of like looking at your schedule. And I don't know if you time block or do things like that. But if I look at a day, I can cut out, you know, every single meeting can be half the time because I'm so much more decisive and I'm so much more clear, and I know how to delegate, and I know, and especially if the team is doing it too. Yeah. I don't want anybody touching my business if they're not using breath work for their clarity, for their creativity, and for their intuition. It hits different. Yeah. You know, like the ideas are different. They're nuanced. They're original. It's where innovation, it's where invention comes from, when everyone's thinking from different regions of the brain and they're making new connections. It's really very similar to microdosing. Yeah. So for me, in order for me to feel really confident in scaling and growing, I want every member of the team, whether it's a creative director or, you know, to be using this breath to see the designs, to see the fonts, to see the colors, to feel the energy of how we want the audience to feel, or the listener. So it's really important to me. And I think that the entire company and everything will move more seamlessly, more efficiently, more effectively when everyone's breathing.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you bring up microdosing, because you know, I'm still kind of discovering where I am on like my sober journey, and I have nothing against microdosing, and I've really enjoyed it. But it's like when I use something to like get into that flow state or to open up different areas of my brain, I also feel like I'm, cheating on some level, right? Like, and by the way, like I never set out to like be sober. It's more like alcohol was something that just took up too much space for me.
Totally.
So that I will never go back to, but I would much rather be able to access the benefits of microdosing without microdosing.
I completely agree. I tried it once and I was like, breathwork's better.
Yeah.
And I went on a full journey, after my first breathwork retreat was in Bali. That's where I discovered it. And my life was never the same. Yeah. But I needed to know, I needed to do my due diligence and research. So I went and did ayahuasca in Peru. And then I went to India for a month. And then I did a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation. And nothing compared to the clarity and the efficiency of breathwork.
10-day silent.
No. Okay.
That's crazy.
No phone. That was the hardest part.
Yeah, of course.
And then you're meditating 11 hours a day. You're not eating past noon. No exercise. No reading. No writing.
That's crazy.
That's intense. And I will tell you, after the 10 days, it was really cool because I noticed that my emotional reactivity was really mitigated. And Vipassana is really around this idea of equanimity and dissolving those emotional reactions and just kind of noticing the sensations move through your body and not associating them to any meaning and finding more balance. And I was like, great. I notice I'm not as triggered, with my ex-boyfriend as I used to be, but it's not like breathwork. Breathwork, I am clear. I have ideas. I have visions. I have things I want to birth into the world. I'm realizing, where this identity came from. I'm realizing where this pattern comes from. And then boom, it's just dissolved. The emotion's gone from my body. Like it's just so much more powerful than anything else I've tried. And I've really tried to modernize it and make it something that is accessible to everyone. Because the original breathwork sessions I did were 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 2.5 hours.
Wow.
So 20 minutes with very focused vocal cues, we can do it.
Yeah. No, for sure. And so many people have really said amazing things about experiencing breathwork through you. And our mutual friend, Brian Mazza, obviously is one of them. And at his high performance retreats, it's funny to see like these really masculine, savages like crying and, getting emotional. But I think it's interesting too, because a lot of conversations that I have are around masculine and feminine energy. And I think for me, like I oftentimes tap into my feminine energy and I'm so not, that's not, I think that's a superpower also,
totally.
And I think a lot of men don't really even think about that, and I think it's impossible to really will your way through everything, which is kind of how I operated, hustle culture, just, being super busy, but not necessarily productive.
Yeah.
And wisdom, and age and everything that, that just kind of being intentional has allowed me to like, even though I have all these tabs open, it's allowed me to have so much more clarity just in general by, taking a step back and, trying to, it's almost like addition by subtraction on some level, even though again, I'm busy, but I'm aware of where I need to, put more energy and effort in, and where I need to maybe step back or say no. But I think I agree with you. I could be even more clear and leverage breath work to do so.
Well, your journey's been really beautiful. You've kind of just evolved on your own and found more stillness and discovered the things that work for you to have more balance in your life and to do the things that are your superpowers and you're meant to help people, scale or operate or grow and do these things. But I feel like breath work is the way to access that peak performance without more grind.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to hustle harder, actually. We just have to get into alignment. And alignment sometimes is clearing out emotional blockages. And for you, you've discovered, that alcohol was a culprit of a lot of things that didn't benefit you in your life.
Yeah.
For other people, it's a lot harder to kind of quit cold turkey. Like you kind of had to find the source of where addictive patterns have come from, and you have to heal some of those wounds. And a lot of times they come from childhood.
Totally. And
when you can release the source of that, then you can start to move with a bit more ease and a bit more grace.
I think that everybody has trauma, right?
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
like, but some people are just less comfortable admitting that and then talking about it and, even facing it head on, right? Which is why I think alcohol and substances are so prevalent, because you just don't want to deal with it. You think that, you could just make yourself more comfortable by being numb. But the reality is you're just pushing off the pain, and it's compounding, to bring that word up again in a negative way. And I think that everybody listening could be doing something, adding something into their routine that will help them advance so much more, and I think people just stay complacent because they just don't want to do the difficult thing.
I would actually say that I've found a lot of people aren't actually aware of their trauma.
Wow.
Because especially if you're a high performer, we tend to gaslight ourselves.
It's true.
And we're like, it wasn't that bad, sense. Relatively compared to this person. I had a pretty good childhood. You're right. my parents loved me, so I think I'm fine. And we really gaslight ourselves, and we don't give ourselves grace, and we don't give ourselves compassion for some of the things that we've moved through and the protective strategies that we've had to develop. And that's something that I really learned in breathwork, as I had been in therapy and I had read books, and I was like, I'm aware. I have some daddy issues. Like, all right,
move on.
No big deal.
Deal with it.
Yeah, deal with it.
Exactly.
This is not as bad as what a lot of the world is dealing with. I'm so privileged and fortunate in so many ways. Right. So I'm not going to be a victim.
Yeah.
And then I would go into breathwork, and I would actually feel like how painful some of that absence was for a little girl.
Yeah.
And then I was like, whoa, I've just completely skipped that part. Skipped the feeling and just gone straight to being a driven, ambitious, going to prove my worth and prove that I'm successful and do all these things. And I'm just going to run at 200% all the time and not let myself feel bad for that little girl.
I feel like we all have a similar story, right? It's like we're all dealing with issues and running.
Yeah.
And high performing people probably that can relate to what you just said. I mean, because it's, even though it's just replacing it with little boy, for me, it's the same story, just running for decades. Running. It's fucking exhausting.
It's exhausting, and you will start to burn out, and then it'll start to take a toll on your body. Yeah. And I think that's the part where I had a coach say to me, if you keep going like this, you're going to get cancer. Yeah. You're going to develop an autoimmune disease.
Let's talk about that, because that's powerful.
It was powerful. It was so powerful. I mean, it stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah, I lost my mom in my early 20s to cancer. So it's like, and it's so prevalent. And when you think about all of, the things you could do to try to limit your exposure to things, or eating the right thing, nutrition, like all of that stuff, I feel like, stress and, alcohol, there's so many things that can cause cancer. Well, but how do you, that's an interesting statement.
So I don't know how spiritual you are.
I'm spiritual.
But there's a book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, and she talks about...
My wife's favorite author.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, I love that for her. But she talks a lot about the emotional meaning behind physical illness, and that a lot of cancer comes from unprocessed anger and resentment.
I've heard that, and it makes sense.
And even in the Heal documentary, they showed a woman who had an extremely healthy lifestyle, green juices, exercise every day, and she got cancer, and she was really surprised by that. But if we don't deal with the emotions, they're going to manifest. They're going to manifest in our relationships, in our decisions, and in our body.
Yeah. And I feel like if, things can be generally good in my life, where like things are less stressful than they've been in the past, but I could have an interaction with somebody that I care about that like festers inside of me, and I feel like it's doing harm to my body. Yeah. Like I literally feel that way. Yeah. Like that stomach, like the pit in your stomach, the fact that you just can't you can't like move on. You can't bury it, you know,
Yeah.
like it's just something that bothers you and upsets your entire system.
So,
I had that happen recently to me, like literally within the last week, and I'm still not back.
give me 20 minutes.
Legit.
Swear. 20 minutes. This I notice most in my relationship. So my partner and I will, and we have a beautiful relationship, but we still be in conflict.
Yeah.
You know, we're human and we have completely different worldviews. And when there's been several times where we're like in a fight and we're really angry with each other, where it's like, we don't even want to talk to each other.
Yeah.
You know, things are getting escalated. We're
I know
defensive.
that feeling.
Yeah. And it'll get to a point where we're like, okay, we need to breathe because we can't talk ourselves out of this one. You're not seeing my point of view. You're not even listening to me, you know, and we're both just going back and forth. We will breathe for 20 minutes. And by the first song, we're still festering.
Mm-hmm.
The second song, you can, like, our bodies are getting closer because we're starting to dissolve, like, the anger.
Yeah.
By the third song, we're in each other's perspective.
Yeah.
I'm seeing where he's coming from. He's seeing where I'm coming from. And fourth song is all cuddles. It's crazy. And I'm not great at relationships. I'm like I'm like fiery, you know?
I can see that in you. Yeah, for sure.
I'm messy in relationships. Yeah. So this has been a super tool for me to stay in this relationship and to be a healthy partner for him because he deserves that. But I need the breath work because I go red. You know, I'm like, you're doing this to me on purpose. Like I take things so personally. It triggers my father wounds. Yeah. And so unless I breathe and see that he's coming at it from a completely different vantage point and find where we can be a team and be respectful about it, I would have never been in this relationship as long as I have. Like breathwork seriously has saved us multiple times.
See, I shut down. Like I just automatically like shut off.
Yep.
Become completely detached and power through. Like that's just the way that I operate in those situations because I'm always thinking about, okay, like, you know, how should I handle this for the greater good of, I'm very able to see the ripple effects of how I respond to somebody. Yeah. So oftentimes I just bury it, but it festers in me and, you know, and I get an eye twitch. Like I'm just like, you know, like I'm bothered and I don't talk to people about it either, you know, like I literally bury it. So and that is where that's where I could totally understand that actually making you sick.
So my partner has this similar coping strategy that you do. He totally shuts down. And that's really hurtful on the other end.
And I shut down like the problem is that not only am I shutting down, like shutting that person off, so to speak, but like I'm shutting down other parts of my life that I can't shut down, right? Like I'm reacting in different ways because of this thing that's festering. Right. Or like I'm detaching from my creativity. Like I'm not able to access other things that I'm used to accessing because I'm like using the energy to shut this thing down. Which is crazy. I've never actually like put that into words.
This is really good. Yeah. So you're aware of that.
Yes.
You're aware of it. But if I said something that triggered you, you would still go back to that place because even if we intellectually know and we've mentally processed, it doesn't change the reaction in our nervous system. Right. So my partner has a similar pattern. And it's really hurtful to me because I want to move through it. And now he's shut down and he doesn't want to talk and he doesn't want to,
leave the room.
Right. So he did breath work on this pattern actually. And it traced back to when he was a little boy. And when he wanted to voice his, express his disagreement to something. And it was completely shut down. Nobody listened to him. Nobody heard what he had to say. And so he was just like, there's no point in me saying anything. So I'm just going to go. I'm just going to run away. Yeah. And that became his coping mechanism. And I was like, I'm listening. I'm not your mom. Right. So let's reprogram it. Like, let's rewire this behavior in adulthood so we can have healthier conflict resolution. But it's about finding when you're criticized or when you feel taken advantage of or when you feel like things aren't fair, like whatever that trigger point is for you that creates the shutdown in your body, you got to find the source of it. When did that first happen? Was it in college? Was it in elementary school? Was it when you were 4 years old with your dad? Find it, dissipate it from the original memory, from the source, and then you won't have that reaction anymore. Yeah. You'll be more neutral and balanced.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, do you want to do this?
By the way, like we have to discuss that your next book is going to be called "Just Give Me 20 Minutes," because when you said that, it was literally like you had the answer to everything.
Yeah,
you know, and I believe that. Like, just give me 20 minutes. I very much believe that you could pretty much help anybody through something in 20 minutes.
Well, let me be really clear. You have the answer.
Okay.
You have the answer. I don't have the answer. I'm not anybody's healer or their guru, but I know how to hold a space to help you go deeper into your subconscious, to feel the emotion, to release it. You know, I'm just there to hold that space for you.
Yeah.
But everyone has their own memories and own place where the patterns were formed and own emotions that need to be released. And that's what's cool about doing the Hypno Breathwork in a group setting. Everyone has a different insight. They had different physical sensations. They had different emotions come up. They have different visions for their future. They have different action steps to take.
Yeah.
You have that. But in 20 minutes, we can get to it and we can just shift it.
Yeah.
And that's so liberating. That's so empowering.
I had a conversation with a friend yesterday who was talking about a meditation that they did recently where they saw themselves as a little girl, like in situations that felt very familiar, but like kind of going through memories that they didn't remember.
Yeah.
And do you think that like we subconsciously like shut off memories and things if, you know, that we went through if they were painful, like defense mechanisms, things see, that's intimidating to access that stuff and see it is intimidating. I think it's beautiful at the same time because you know, you need to find the answers and, like you said, go back to, you know, the origination of where you started to feel these feelings.
Well, you have a choice, right? You can go through that uncomfortable emotion, which typically only lasts about 90 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's heavy and it feels deep and it feels intense, but then you use the breath to breathe it out and you will feel so much lighter. Everyone says, I feel 10 pounds lighter. I feel 100 pounds lighter. That was like 2 years of therapy in one session. That's the most common thing that we hear. Or you don't face it and it doesn't go anywhere. It still lives in your body. It still shapes your identity. Yeah. It still plays out in your relationships and how you affect people and the decisions that you make. So I think it's worth doing the deep work to get into alignment and live as the highest version of ourselves.
I agree.
And I think that was, you know, the point in trying to Mastry app was a way for people to experientially move through it in 20 minutes because that's what I wanted and that's what I needed. And then I realized that people need more context. And so that's kind of the purpose of the book, is to really write out the whole process about how part 1 is about healing the past and reconciling relationships. Part 2 is about getting into alignment and connecting our creative skills and getting into flow state. And then part 3 is really about taking intuitive action and being of service. And that's how you really live your purpose. And that's how you find more color and more meaning and joy and fulfillment and abundance in your life.
So after leaving your corporate job because you weren't fulfilled, but I'm sure everybody from the outside in thought you were crushing it and happy and had all the things. Looking back on that, it had to be really scary to make the transition. And obviously, you know, entrepreneurship is not an easy thing. And I think it actually is over glorified, you know. I think that it's, you know, people just, every young person wants to be an entrepreneur and doesn't necessarily understand what it means, right? The highs and the lows.
It was a hard transition. The financial piece was the hardest part.
And for somebody who's like in that place right now, I think there's so many people that are unhappy in their relationships, unhappy in their job, right? Like, and ultimately at this stage of my life, being at peace and fulfilled is everything. Yeah. You know, but I also like nice things and I want to provide a certain lifestyle for my family. Yeah. So I think it's really challenging to make that transition. Yeah. But I think you would say that if you're taking these tools and using them, that you could actually find the answers that will make it easier to make a transition like that. In every area of life. In every area. Yeah. I had That's your experience, right? That is. Yeah. And I had this revelation. This is a beautiful segue, honestly. So
in the book, every chapter has a free Hypno Breathwork session to start building to the practice, to start experiencing it, to gain self-awareness. So I obviously created them and I had to test them. And I just did that recently because we got all the audiobook sessions, and I had major insights and downloads and next, level visions for Mastry. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And it really works. But for me, the transition that was the hardest was the financial piece, because you're going from a steady paycheck, promotion, bonuses, 401k, safety, like security, to not knowing where this money is going to come from. And breathwork was really hard like 5 years ago because less people knew about it. And I was used to a lifestyle. Yeah. So, how many one-on-one clients am I going to need, or group programs am I going to have to create? Like, I didn't really know how to become a successful coach. Yeah. But I use this practice every day, and I thought about, what do I want to create? Who do I want to impact? What's the change I want to make in the world? And now what's my action step? And that's the beautiful part about Hypno Breathwork is every single session has an action step after. That's our last cue, because I love the spiritual world. I love manifestation, but I'm an executor. Yeah. And I think that's the missing piece for a lot of people.
I agree.
Like, you have to fiercely execute with conviction and with boldness, and pairing those two things, intuition and action, that's a game changer.
That's how you
do it.
Anything. Right. And I think that's I'm glad you said that, because I'm spiritual and I believe in manifestation, but I also know if I'm manifesting things in my brain and decide to stay in bed all day, I am not probably going to turn those things into a reality. And I think there's a clear distinction there.
We have to co-create.
Is extremely important.
We have to co-create with the universe. So if anyone is in a transition right now, whether it's out of a relationship or from corporate to doing your own thing, I recommend doing the Hypno Breathwork every single morning on Mastry app, taking your action immediately. And because I did that and stuck through it, through the hard parts, through the uncomfortable parts, got really comfortable in the unknown, because I was just taking action, trusting, reaching out to this person, sending this email, launching this program, doing this workshop. I was just taking action consistently, but it was intuitive action. By the first year of my breathwork coach, I made back my salary as a marketing director. My second year, I more than doubled it. My third year, I raised $1 million to launch Mastry. So it will give you abundance if you have courage to live on the aligned path.
At any stage of life, you're dealing with, I have a conversation later today. I have a meeting later today where it could have a big financial impact on my business. And the anticipation of that, it's like, well, I always know that, I'm good at what I do, and I truly have the right intentions. Yeah. And when you combine those things, it's pretty powerful. But at the same time, it's like, well, listen, if this relationship is going to change, that means I need to go out and make sure that I can establish new relationships to replace that, not only replace that, but continue to build, essentially, right? So I think you have to, I know that I need to do things, because in order for you to show up as your best self and believe that the universe will deliver things that you're not even aware of or thinking of right now. Like, I truly believe that if I implement breath work into my life, I guarantee that beautiful things will happen as a result of that. So I'm going to commit to, I'm going to add it to my checklist.
Please
How about
do.
that?
Yes, please do.
Do I have to do 20 minutes?
There's 8-minute sessions. You can start there.
Because I feel like in the morning for me, like it is, and this isn't an excuse, I already have a pretty, robust morning routine where it would be way easier for me to not spend 20 minutes.
Do it in the sauna. Start it in the cold plunge if you want.
Yeah,
you can
that's
do some
probably
habit
the best
stacking.
place for me to do it.
Yeah. But, I think a lot of the reason that so much success is coming to you now is obviously years of hard work and dedication and just being an expert at what you do. But I really feel like you're in your purpose. And I think a really beautiful, simple explanation or definition of purpose was by a thought leader named Brandon Collinsworth. And he said, your skills plus serving others equals purpose.
Wow.
And that's what I love about these conversations with you is like, you obviously have this vast amount of knowledge and skills, but you really have a pure intention to want to help people. And I wrote that when I signed the book. I'm like, you're just so generous with your time and with who you want to support. And because that intention is to be outward, I think that signals to the universe they want to give you more and more opportunity. You know what I mean? And
oh, that was beautiful, and I appreciate that. And it's like I receive that, but it's interesting because it's like, you know, almost hard to hear, you know, where because I'm used to the struggle, and it's like, you know, I do feel like I am in my purpose, and I think it's really nice to hear.
Good. You should just receive it.
Yeah, and I am. And it's not easy for me to receive, which is just, you know.
But this is a part of the breathwork too, because you have a habit. If you have a thought that it's going to be a struggle, that it always has to be a struggle, that success is a struggle, then you're going to create that when it doesn't need to be.
Yes.
You know?
Great point.
So I want you to breathe on that intention.
I'm going
like,
to do that.
I want to feel like success can be easy and it can just flow and it can be fun and I can still have time for my family. You know, you can completely redefine it, but you have to do it on a subconscious level.
Yeah, and I've started to realize those things through, you know, the things that I've really implemented in the last few years. And reprioritization of things, and you know, it's been great. But I know that I can get so much more. Yeah, you know, and I appreciate you so much. I really do. Where can everybody find this book? So where can everybody find you? Where can everybody find Mastry?
Yes. So you can find the book Unblock Your Purpose on Amazon. And then you can find me on Instagram at Francesca Sipma or my website, francescasipma.com. And then Mastry is available on Apple and Android devices in the Apple Store and Google Play.
Amazing. And we're going to host something together.
Yeah, let's do that. I really want to do that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And we'll let everybody know where that's going to be and when.
Sounds good.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I just wanna have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my card, never see the receipt. Good health, we prize, but everybody around prosperity. I just wanna have peace.